welcome to the podcast that isn't afraid to use its tallest centre mid as an emergency striker. It's the big man up top. And
it's very topical.
Speaking of emergency strikers, Joel Brown. Ed is away this week.
He is.
And he was a bit panicky last week, bless him. He was like, what are we going to do about the podcast? Should I call you from holiday, he said to me. And I said, I love the commitment, but Ed, you deserve a break. He's had a hard term, hasn't he?
Oh, he's put a shift in. He's had a good 45. He deserves a bit of time off.
This is his international break.
It is.
But we are delighted to have Joel Brown. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, this wasn't even part of my plan. I was like, you know what? I'll support what's going on, and if they ever need me, I'm here. But it is a joy to be back on the podcast.
Well, it's an absolute joy to have you here. Shall we jump straight into some trivia?
Yes, please. Let's do this. So this is a little game that we play on the podcast each and every week. It's called Bible Ballers. It's basically guess the player with a difference, right? So I'm going to quiz Joe, and the answer is going to be a player who will share his first name with a name of a book in the Bible. So, Joe, Can I just say, that's the best explanation of the quiz you've ever had. I've been working on that. That's been the hardest bit. I've been thinking about that all day. It's been a bit tense, but I'm glad that you enjoyed that.
You nailed it.
So you're ready?
I'm ready. Hit me.
Here we go. Which Belgian fullback signed for Leicester in 2020, won the FA Cup with them in 2021, and then joined Fulham in 2023, where he's been playing ever since?
Okay, it's a good question, though.
It is a good question.
Leicester. Belgian fullbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Leicester fullbacks, historically, I've thought of Christian Fuchs.
Okay.
Of course, there's not a book called Christian,
which is,
Christians in the Bible.
It is very much in the Bible. Yeah. You've got plenty of time, Joe. We'll revisit this at the end, but I can already hear the cogs turning in your mind, so we'll revisit that later on.
That's very kind of you. Now, Joel.
Yes.
Obviously, this is your probably first episode proper. You've had a few bench appearances.
Yeah.
You joined me. You joined me and Ed on an episode. You came in for the quiz episode. Sadly, you did lose that on producer Anthony's team.
That was a good fight, though. Like, it was end-to-end stuff. So I was honoured to be part of it, and to be on Anthony's team was incredible. It was a good experience.
Just pipped at the post at the last round.
At the last round, it was tough.
Devastating. But this is your first episode proper. Have you had a chance to watch any football this weekend?
Oh, Joe, I had the best weekend because fortunately there wasn't much on the schedule anyway. Okay. But then people are like, Joel, what are you doing? And I was like, before you ask me to do anything, no, I'm busy. What are you doing? And I was on the couch all of Saturday. I turned my phone off. I was there just sort of making notes, and I just watched football all day.
Is that not the dream?
Glorious. It was so good because people were out doing kind of jobs and stuff, and I was like, I'm not gonna move. I had a couple cups of tea, and I relaxed. So basically, yes, I did watch plenty of football on Saturday. Fortunately, didn't watch the game on Friday night, but we might talk about that later on.
We're going to come on to that one, but I think we should start with Manchester City.
Wow, gosh.
They look quite good in this game.
They look a bit fresh and just sprightly. I think Marmoush he's a little wizard. Like, bless this guy. He seemed to do everything right. He was in the right place. His first touch was fantastic, and he just had an eye for goal every time he touched the ball. Yeah, really, really impressive.
I think you're right. It's that freshness. They've looked a bit tired this season.
Yes.
They've missed Rodri massively.
Yeah.
Marmoush has come in as a January signing and quite a well-spoken about player.
Very.
Had a very good goal record at Eintracht Frankfurt before joining City, and he seems to have brought something fresh, something quite exciting.
Yeah.
Got a 13-minute hat-trick.
I think regardless of who you are, that's impressive. And I think especially when you step into a City team, when, like, not your rival, but the person you're playing next to is Haaland. A couple of times when I was watching the game back, I was like, I wonder how Haaland's feeling about all this.
I was about to say that. What do you think he thinks?
I can't imagine he's a happy boy. Erling Haaland is a cross man at the best of times. So to then have this new guy come in, provide something completely different, because he's not the same striker as Haaland at all, but then excel in ridiculous ways. Maybe now there's someone who's just going to be pushing him, saying, look, I'm on your heels now. If you don't perform, I'm right there, and people know I can perform. The people already love him. So, he's in a really good place, Marmoush.
This season's not been great, but I think this is a breath of fresh air for them. I think you're right. I think an angry Haaland is a good Haaland.
For them, without a doubt. Yeah, absolutely.
He is main character energy.
So that's what it is. That's what it is.
Newcastle, disappointing in this game. I think you think of their midfield as the best midfield in the league, I think, physically.
Yeah.
And that is somewhere that City have struggled this season. So you went into this thinking this could be tight.
Yeah.
But anything but.
It really
tight.
wasn't, I was like, am I watching the same Newcastle that went, 8-9 wins on the bounce? It was like I was watching a different team, and that was a very, very strange experience. But City capitalised on it, and they said, look, you're going to pay for this. We're not going to let you get away with a shoddy performance. If you act like that, you're going to lose.
And we will see what happens. Is this a revitalised Man City? Let's move on to Palace 1, Everton 2.
Oh,
the battle. The battle of the centre forwards.
Football. I've got one word for you after this game. Football. It was a breath of fresh air. You mentioned it before. I was smiling the whole time while watching this game. I think I'm slightly biased. My whole step family are quite big Evertonians.
Are they?
So I think because they've stepped in, but I've got a soft spot for Everton. Take nothing away from Palace and everything they were doing. It was just send it to the big man up top and we're going to see what happens.
We love it.
We absolutely love it. I think it was very unlucky to Palace. I think they were the better team. However, it was just Everton's day.
I love watching Palace this season.
Man.
I love watching Will Hughes in the centre mid. He's everywhere. And the fans absolutely love him. And you're right, this didn't go Palace's way at all. They had that goal disallowed.
Yeah, that was
where
tough.
The goal was ruled out because the ball went out of play, but they didn't have a camera angle to prove it.
Yeah, it was dodgy. It was dodgy.
They showed this ridiculous angle where they were trying to judge it, and you could see VAR were like, there's no point looking at this.
We have no idea. And so then they just had to follow the on-pitch decision. I think that was one of the major points. I was like, I don't know if they're in it today. I don't know if they can have it because it's not going their way. But a beautiful game of football.
And it's been a great week for Everton, actually.
Huge
game on Wednesday night. Obviously this happened after last week's episode, so we didn't cover it. The Merseyside derby.
The final one.
The final one at Goodison Park.
Man.
And with the final kick of the game.
Oh, man.
James Tarkowski rifles one into the
It was an absolutely fantastic centre-forwards finish. How do you feel about this, Joe?
Yeah, it was a horrible game. On the face of it, I think a point is a good result away at the like you say, the last derby. But just the circumstance, it's one of those games where you just want to stay off Twitter after that.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I think
the narrative is
But
brilliant time for Everton, and what a great moment. Really nice narrative of David Moyes being manager for the last one at Goodison Park. So we'll see what happens with them. I think it's quite exciting. And a team that they have overtaken with that win, Manchester United.
Oh, Joel. Man. That was just such a bizarre game.
Neither team are very good.
No.
You're watching this game this is it's a bit dull.
It was just a bit of a clown fest, really.
Yeah.
Like, I saw it and I was like, the fact that these two are playing, like James Maddison scores just a tap in and he celebrates like he's won the Champions League finally. He's shushing people, and it was like, okay, mate, pipe down, come on. And to be fair, he doesn't need to hear me say that, because I don't know if you've seen, like, online it was brutal, the jokes about being in a relegation battle and celebrating after that. So look, I don't need to heap more abuse on him. But a bizarre game.
Really bizarre game. And actually United had the better chances.
Without a doubt.
In this game. I think Vicario really saved Spurs in this game. They had a lot of shots on target. Yeah, for a game with so many shots on target, it was really dull. But yeah, Spurs scrapes a win. United having a bit of an injury crisis. This week, both Amad Diallo and Kobbie Mainoo, two of their best players this season, have been ruled out with injury.
Really tough.
Both in training.
Yeah, which is odd, because surely the point of training is that you're there to build up for the matches. I think if something happens in a match, it's like, you know what? That's understandable, because you can't really control that. Training, you've got a fully controllable environment. How on earth are the injuries happening with all the warm-ups and the warm-downs that these players are doing? Are they just being pushed too hard? Because surely then that's got to be personal error.
I think it must be. This is happening a lot. Arsenal have also lost a couple of players through injury in training. Spurs as well.
Yeah.
I think there's this whole thing of fitness coaches are pushing their players to the limit and seeing what they can do. You know, you have these hot weather trainings in Dubai. That's where Havertz has got his season-ending injury. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on, but a lot of clubs seem to be losing players in training, which doesn't happen that often.
Well, and it certainly shouldn't, because it'd be really interesting as well to hear from the players on this, because obviously, you know, they may have to give a statement of like, oh, you know, it was this, I'll be back soon, don't panic. But I wonder what they really think. You know, are they agreeing with the levels that they're being pushed to? I think, you know, it's been spoken about on the podcast before. How often, you know, are we seeing these football players that at the end of the day are people? How often are they just being seen as like means to make money? If it's actually down to just being pushed too hard and having to train too many days on the bounce or whatever it may be. Yeah, it's tough to hear. It is really tough to hear. I think especially for some of these young players. Like I love watching Kobbie Mainoo play football. He's cool, he's silky, and he's young, he's English, he's exciting. And so to see these young, exciting players out, it's like, man, it doesn't leave a good taste in the mouth, that's for sure.
Well, speaking of bad taste in the mouth, Joel,
here we go.
It might be time to talk about Friday night. Brighton 3, Chelsea 0. Now, you are a Chelsea fan.
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Oh, wow. I mean, there's just not a whole lot to say. I think it was coming off the back of the loss in the FA Cup. That's already a red flag. You know, we've already lost to them once. Is it going to happen again?
And I think there's this thing of, I know when I'm following Liverpool, if you play the same team in a league and an FA Cup in the same week or whatever cup, you're like, you're not going to win both, but you don't think you'll lose both. I think you'll get something.
At least something. And I think that was what we wanted. You know, at least put in a good performance. And honestly, I can't even say that we did. You know, I think Brighton, they out-muscled us. They outplayed us as well. And I think the thing was that they just looked like they were playing football. We could not link up a pass together. You had 3-4 players chasing the ball at points. As soon as Mitoma scored that absolute wonder goal. That first touch is straight out of heaven. It was amazing. The first touch onto the side, finish. The way that you can do that is just incredible. I think that's Mitoma at his best. And at his best, I think he's one of the best sort of wingers and cutting-in wingers in the league. We just couldn't deal with them, and they were everywhere, and it just seemed to work out. We got outplayed. They were just a better team.
Now, how's this season been as a Chelsea fan?
Oh man, it's been a roller coaster.
It's been really up and down. I feel like you had a really strong start, really good squad. I feel like Maresca's managing the whole Conference League thing really well, having kind of that separate team going on. But a bit of a dip recently.
Yeah. I think it's been very frustrating because, you know, we started to see things working together. You know, we started to see some team chemistry. The bench players were fitting in nicely. The second team was working out nicely. And you started to think, we're looking like a football team here. And suddenly, it just seems like we're falling apart. We're still like top 5, top 6 somehow, which I don't know how we've been able to do. Yeah. If we can keep in that top 5, top 6, I would be happy for this season, and I think we just need to go again.
Because you're kind of in that strange between 3rd and 11th part of the table where a win can change everything. Like teams are swapping around. At the moment, Forest and Bournemouth are in the top 5 and looking really good.
Really good.
A few wins and that all changes, and it's going to be an exciting end to the season, I think.
I think so.
For those Champions League places. A few places just to round up before we move on. Leicester 0, Arsenal 2. Bit of a dead game until
so boring. It was so boring.
Arteta masterstroke.
It was a bit clever.
Brings on Mikel Merino. Now there was a bit of a chat of using him up front. He's tall. He's done it before in Spain. Okay. And Arteta thought, let's try it. Yeah. And it worked.
And I think that that's when you can say, okay, you know what? Arteta does know what he's doing. Apparently, there'd been no training in the build-up. He just said, look, just go on. That's what you're going to do. And I think that did play a big part of it. And he made the change, and it worked. Fair play. Credit where it's due.
Yeah. Elsewhere, Liverpool scraped past Wolves, Joel.
How did you feel off the back of the game? Obviously, were you was it a nervy performance throughout, did you feel?
I think the second half was really nervy. Okay. There was a stat that since records began, this was the first game that Liverpool didn't register a shot on target in the second half.
Wow.
Which is pretty crazy at Anfield.
Wow.
So yeah, it was, first half felt really comfortable. Second half, not so much. A win is a win. You'll take it. You'll get out of there.
Yeah.
Villa away on Wednesday.
Oof.
City away on Sunday. So
yeah, it's a tough two.
It's a tough week.
Yeah,
it's a really tough week. And finally, Villa 1, Ipswich 1. Ipswich again, a good showing from them.
Yeah. Again, I think I've just got a place in my heart for Ipswich. It's probably Amari Hutchinson. You know, there was that in the build up to the goal. He just brings the ball down, and it's like he had it in his hand, and it was just dropped straight to him. Like, just incredible. I think again, he's another young, exciting player. 10 men as well to then bolt it up the other end and score. Just fantastic. They just do they've got an eye for goal at the moment, and they like what they're doing. They've got a good system, and then they basically just had to park the bus and survive for the rest of the game, which they managed to do so.
Yeah,
even though Villa looked dangerous.
Yeah, Villa
looked
good.
So dangerous.
Villa look very good. On to the EFL, we probably should mention Stoke winning.
I think this is so funny. The one time Ed isn't here and Stokes pull off a 3-1 win. Come on.
Mark Robins' first home win as Stoke manager.
Wow.
There was a 55-yard goal in this game as well. And that's enough about Stoke, I would say.
That's it. Ed, you're welcome.
And just to say as well, Blackburn Plymouth. Now, Adam Forshaw used to play for Plymouth and got let go in January to join Blackburn. He hasn't scored a goal in 9 years. His last goal was in 2015.
Yikes. What a year.
33 years old, so he's not super old for the Championship, but he scored against his old club.
Oh, it's just
at the weekend, and
bittersweet.
He loved it.
I bet he did.
He ran over to the bench, did a little celebration.
No.
He's saying that he was pointing to his family, but do we believe that?
What? Not a chance.
I don't know if we do. Blackburn manager John Eustace asked for permission to speak to Derby, and I believe has now joined them as their new manager. And this is quite a weird move from John Eustace, because he's at high-flying Blackburn, pushing for promotion. He's made the decision to move to Derby, who aren't doing so well.
Well, they're certainly not pushing for promotion.
They aren't doing that at all. But previously, John Eustace has been Birmingham manager, doing really well a couple of seasons ago. And they got new owners, new American owners, who decided to get rid of John Eustace and bring in Wayne Rooney. Now, that didn't work.
No.
So quite a strange managerial career from John Eustace. And finally, just in the WSL, Arsenal 5, Spurs 0. Big win.
Huge.
For Arsenal. And the story of this game, Chloe Kelly, you might remember her from the Euros, scored the winning goal in the final.
Baller. What a footballer.
She came through the Arsenal Academy, left in 2018, but has returned to Arsenal this January. Came on for her second debut and had a great time.
Look, good for her. And we love that. What a return. What a return.
So, Joel, today we are going to talk about football and how it can be used in our communities.
Fantastic.
How it can be used for good. Now, Ed is not with us.
He's not.
In person, but he has brought an interview.
Oh, what a lovely gift.
Honestly, very kind of him. He sat down with Martin Bateman from Ambassadors Football, and they do a lot of work in the community, both in the UK and abroad. So they had a chat about what they're getting up to and how we can get involved.
I am joined by Martin Bateman from Ambassadors Football. How are you doing, Martin?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, thanks, Ed. Yeah, good to be here.
Great. So for anybody who doesn't know about Ambassadors Football, you guys do a lot of stuff. There's a lot of different things going on all over the world. Tell us about Ambassadors Football, what you guys do, what the mission is.
Yeah, we are aiming to help churches reach out to their local communities through the international language of football. We are part of a network of similar national organisations in about 30 countries around the world. The aim has always been to share faith through football, and so it comes in different ways. So in Britain, we really believe in three pillars of what we do, really. We invest in churches, and then we invest in people, and we share Jesus through football. So there are churches in almost every local community. So we say, well, can we help the church get out of its building onto a football pitch? And that's where you'll meet people, whether you like it or not. People love football. And so why don't we make the most of that love of football, firstly, and then the things that you can teach through football as a vehicle to be able to then share about the good news that we know, that you can have peace and hope and joy in a new way through Jesus.
That's really interesting. Why do you think football is such a good vehicle to communicate this good news and to communicate the gospel?
I think we're created as human beings. That's my belief. And we're created in the image of God, but we've got this creative ability and a desire to play. So kids from an early age, they'll want to play with each other. There's an ability for football to give that pleasure of exercise, which is good. It's a team game as well, which helps to then work out how you work with other people. You need to rely on other people to do their best as you do your best, and then you can succeed in whatever way that looks like. So as a parent, myself seeing kids when I've seen them play, and also as a fan of, for better or worse, of a couple of football clubs, one local to me and one where I was born, you see your team play and you've got this connection to wanting to see these guys that you not really know that well, but you want to see them succeed. There are ways in which values that you might hold as well, and I believe biblical values, Christian values, can play out on a football field. So what we do in Ambassadors is often through football sessions say, well, what do we want to do today on the football field? We need to make sure we play well as a team. So that's a really good, important thing in football. It's important in life as well. If you go to school and you don't get on with your kids that your friends at school, you're not going to have a good time. So how can you do better on the field, and how can you do better in life in this aspect of teamwork? And then you can look at what the Bible says about that. There's so many ways in which the Bible is reflected on the field of play.
And I think it speaks to this wider point of football being used as a force for good. Actually, when, to be honest, obviously football fans love football and think it's great, but a lot of people, I think, outside the game look at football as often being something that is maybe a net negative in society. You know, the unsavory elements of the game. There's issues that we talk about on this podcast as well. So it's amazing that this whole reason that Ambassadors exists is to basically remind ourselves of why football is good in the first place.
Yeah, it's more than just a tool for sharing our faith. As Christians, I believe we're inherently created to want to be creative, to play, to express ourselves. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. That's a really important verse for me to say, hey, we've got strength inside of us. We've got physical abilities. When we do them to the best of our ability, we reflect God. We're loving God. We can love our neighbor as well. That could be the competitor that we have on the other side of the net or on the pitch. If they play to the best of their ability, we play to the best of our ability, we'll actually have a better game, which kind of turns on its head a little bit some of the concepts of, are you praying to win today? You know, we need to make sure we win. Well, actually, let's pray to play the best we can. But I think it is almost letting people know that football in itself is not inherently good or bad. It's just a way to express yourself. And like in any walk of life, you've got the arts, you've got songs, you've got all sorts of ways. Sport in the same way. You can have great examples of people expressing themselves badly, and there's good and bad in the world, and it can be expressed really badly on a football field. But actually, in its purest form, expressing yourselves through sport and using your creative abilities to do something good in that way can be a really good expression of love for yourself, love for others, and for me as well, it'd be love for God. If I can play to the best of my ability for, in my point of view, for God, then I'll know that I've done my best, and that gives satisfaction as well.
I'm really intrigued, like, how you balance the idea of sharing the gospel with the football side of things.
I think that there's a really positive move towards holistic ministry where, okay, Jesus is involved in all aspects of our lives. It's not just a Sunday, obviously, as a churchgoer, it's any day of the week. And so that can apply to the football field. So there's a need to realize that when you're playing football, you're a representative of Christ. If you're a Christian, you've also got a chance to be able to then interact with people who know Jesus more or less, and so you can talk about it. But I think what I've noticed in the last 10 years or so, the staff and the churches that we work with, if you intentionally realize you've got an opportunity here where people come together, they want to play football together. So people want to be with you, kids especially. They don't like being at school. They don't like being at church. They actually want to be on a football field. So if you can harness that and say, well, actually, through this session, we're going to talk about a good character value. You hear it from professional coaches these days. They talk about the whole person being really important. So you can reflect that in grassroots football and say, we're running this session. We always pause at half time because we want to talk about some character value or a story from the world of football, and we just want to relate it to what it means for our faith, because it's part of our lives when we're at church or when we're on the football field. And so you've got that element. One thing that we've developed over the last 12 years or so is something every Friday there's an email that Ambassadors sends out to anybody that wants it. And it talks about something that's been in the news of football and relates it through questions to faith. And that's an easy way, certainly for adult football, to just relate football back to faith. And then for junior football, I coach on a Saturday morning with a group of 8 and 9-year-olds. We're going through the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So where we're up to now, patience. Some concepts are a little bit harder to describe than others, but you need it in football, don't you? There are ways in which you can then integrate a gospel message into a footballing scenario or environment.
That's fantastic. And I can fully concur, because I received those emails and they are great. We're going to bring this to land shortly, Martin. Tell us a little bit about where Ambassadors Football is looking to go or to grow. So what are the sort of focus points for you guys over the short to medium term?
We've changed our emphasis probably over the last 10 years from doing a lot of work ourselves, which is not a bad thing, it's good, but we have a small number of staff. We've grown to have 12 staff now, various parts of the country. We used to deliver a lot of football sessions ourselves. So we'd be crisscrossing London, doing an after-school club or a lunchtime club, or doing something on a Saturday morning or Sunday, trying to coach and play and organise football ourselves. And we realised that the church itself, again, investing in churches and then investing in people, the people in the churches are key. If we can develop volunteer-run, effective football outreaches around the country, then we've done our job. You know, we can create an environment for people or help people to know how to create that environment. But then that element of getting people involved in church, involved in discussing their faith, is something that people need to do. So we're looking to be able to build God's kingdom, not particularly Ambassadors' kingdom, by saying, how can we do community football outreach through many churches around the country? So we have a community football outreach journey we would take a church on if they wanted to sign up. So that's 12 months of us walking alongside them, where we go through orientation and training with a group from that church. And then the kickoff phase, we say, is the first 6 weeks of the program. It could be walking football for older folk. It could be a women's football session. It could be a kids session. We'll come and help provide that for the first 6 weeks and set you up to then lead it yourselves. And so we see that as one of the core elements of stuff that we do. But also we realize that event-based outreaches also have their place. And so we provide opportunities with the London Churches Football Tournament. We also do one in Nottingham and Sheffield. We're looking to try and do one in the Northwest. We have a National Christian Football Festival, and they're for football teams to come together that would be normally a church-run football team, or your kind of kickabout that you went to, Ed, in a previous life, but where you've got a group of guys that come together and say, well, we could go to that. We could have a weekend away for the blokes on this team and play in this football tournament, have a good time. And then also we intentionally then share faith around that weekend. So we're wanting to see those event-based programs still happen. And then over a holiday time for 3 to 5 mornings or a whole day, we help a church to set up and run a football club. And we would provide staff then, because it's a one-off event and it probably be a church that's new to getting involved with football ministry. We'll say we'll come and provide staff and coaches if you can provide the environment, and we've got some materials for a football holiday club. So we're looking to say, how can the church in Britain and then across the world as well? We've taken 3 tours this year: a women's tour to Uganda, a tour to Spain for blokes in September, and I went on a visit to North Africa that we'd like to develop links with a partner there.
Lots going on then, really lots going on. So if somebody's listening to this and they think, oh, that's great, I enjoy football, I want to help make a difference, how can people find out more about Ambassadors Football? Where can they find more information?
Finding out about Ambassadors Football is easy. ambassadorsfootball.org/GB, because there are other national organisations. But that takes you to our homepage that then gives an overview of what we do. And through that, you can click on the links to learn more about volunteering with us or community football outreach, or you can write to gb@ambassadorsfootball.org, and we will respond to that email very promptly. There are other organisations out there, loads of good organisations such as Christians in Sport, Kick, Sports Chaplaincy UK. We work alongside them. But if you're interested, we'd love to be able to point you in the right direction and see where you're up to and see if we can help start some football activities.
Amazing. Martin Bateman from Ambassadors Football, thank you so much for chatting to us on The Big Man Up Top.
Yeah, pleasure.
It's a great chat there with Martin Bateman from Ambassadors Football. And I loved what he said there about football being an international language. You know, that makes me think of if I went away with my family as a kid, we'd often go to France. And, you know, when you're away on holiday, you want to make friends of like kids similar age. And the way you would communicate with them, well, at least I would, is I'd say French footballers at them as if that is a way to communicate. But I'd try and pitch it at not just an obvious French football. I wouldn't just go Thierry Henry.
No, of course, you're better than that.
I'd go like maybe a bit below Pascal Sigan or Bakary Sagna.
So they'd know, they'd be like, wait a minute, this isn't just some regular tourist. This guy knows what he's talking about.
He spoke about football being an international language, how we can kind of use that to communicate and almost to like share the gospel. Do you have any experience of this? I know you play football quite a lot.
Yeah, so I think like in terms of the current situation, so like sometimes I'll play on a Sunday, either an afternoon or an evening if I can, and that'll be like, that's a great opportunity. That's often with mates from church, but sometimes they've got friends from outside of church. So instantly it's like, am I making sure that I know their name before the game so that I can use it mid-game? Afterwards, am I saying, regardless of the score, mate, well played, hopefully I'll see you again in a week, or something like that. That's a bit more like I'm kind of stepping in as a sub, whereas on Monday I will play with people. So I'll play with my stepbrother and I'll play with his mates. Now all of these mates are from back in like his school days, and to my knowledge none of these guys are Christian. Now they're all lovely lads and I've got a place in my heart for each and every one of them, but each and every time I'm on my way to play football with them, I make sure that I pray, because I'm like, I do not want to have a bad attitude. Like, I'll play hard, I might put in a dodgy tackle or two, people are going to say, but I want to make sure that my attitude, that, you know, regardless of, at the end of the game, regardless of the score, even if we've been battered, am I going over and am I shaking hands? Am I saying, look, well played, that was a lot of fun, I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you next week? Is it little things like that, or am I sulking and am I letting my emotion in the moment get the better of me? Because I think usually I'm quite a chilled and laid back guy, but if I'm playing five-a-side, and in particular if it's raining, I've found I get quite competitive and sometimes it will get the better of me, and it's not a good thing to feed into. We hear so often about how actions can speak louder than words. And I remember hearing this verse recently, actually. Jesus said to his disciples, go and show people that you're my disciples. You don't even need to say anything unless people ask you, but show that you do. But if I do a terrible tackle, am I going over straight away and saying, you know what, mate, that was my bad, I'm so sorry about that? Am I helping them up? Or am I saying, yeah, get up, you're making a meal out of it? And so I think even in this, you know, this is a five-a-side team. I'll play with them every week, but I won't see him during the rest of the week. And yet at the same time, I think it's a great opportunity to just give little seeds of like, why is it that Joel just seems a little bit calmer after the game? Why is it that he always apologizes after a tackle? When you do these things in your community, you do make a difference. And that's what I try to really keep my head screwed on with the day-to-day football that I'm playing nowadays.
You have this decision to make when you're going to play football. Is there more value in going to play football, not really speaking about your life as a Christian and your faith, but playing with that attitude of, I live out my faith? Like, that is more valuable than going along talking about your faith, but then flying into tackles, not apologize, like being competitive, because you could almost have that mindset of, oh, I have shared the gospel here,
so it's fine, I've got a free pass.
Maybe I prayed with everyone before the game. If it's like a church thing, that can happen, but then when you start playing, it's off the pitch,
it all goes out the window.
Whereas if you're playing with people and you're not necessarily like spreading the gospel verbally, but you're doing it with your actions, I think that's a lot more powerful. We were chatting before about this. It's almost an opportunity for us to appear normal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure if your mates say, oh, this Christian guy's coming, they probably have a preconception of what that is. But this is an opportunity. We are a footballer who happens to be a Christian. Right?
Yeah,
We're not
yeah,
a Christian who's playing football.
Yeah, and like we were saying before, it was so good to hear from Martin Bateman saying it's an international language, because it is. You could have no similarities to someone. They could be from a different country, speak a different language. If there's a football on the floor, it's like, should we just start doing keepy uppers? Next thing you know, you're laughing, you're doing tricks together, and suddenly it's like, oh, we can have that connection and we can join like that. And I don't know, it's interesting that with some of these guys that I'll play with, some of them really get under my skin. But if they're on my team, suddenly I'm like, actually, you know what? I've got a lot of love for this guy. He's on my team. If someone tackles him, I'm gonna defend him. I'm gonna make sure he's okay. So it's interesting how it works like that. And I think it is a real opportunity, like you said, to just appear normal. Yeah, of course I play five-a-side. And then someone says, oh, Joe, what do you do during the week? Actually, I work at this Christian radio station. Suddenly it's like, oh, there's a conversation. When you allow your actions to be an opportunity, really, to bring peace and bring a bit of joy into what someone's doing, it's a real exciting time that you have to be able to just bless someone, even if it's in a simple little way. Because at the end of the day, this is so much bigger than football. It's so much bigger than football. We're talking about human beings here, and an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? You matter. You're a part of this team. You're a part of what we're doing, this little community. And it's just a great place to be able to break walls down. And I think, yes, there's sometimes before the football, but often it's after the football. You've ran for an hour, maybe 45 minutes. You're knackered. By that point, a lot of people, all their social barriers are collapsed because they're so exhausted they can't even think about that kind of thing. So just, say, oh, mate, God bless, I'll see you next week. Yeah. Little things like that, they do make a difference.
And it might even just be a practical thing of when the game finishes, don't shoot off.
Yeah.
Let's hang around for a bit.
Yeah.
Like, collect the bibs. Oh, I'll take the bibs home and wash them.
Yeah.
Even acts like that can show the kindness that you have. This also extends beyond football, I think, because you might be here thinking, I'm not fit enough to play football. This can extend to any hobby, I reckon.
Absolutely.
Any activity. Maybe you go out for coffee with people, to the pub. I don't know, maybe you go rock climbing. Maybe that's your thing. Like, I think in all these things, Martin spoke about creativity and the arts and the gifts we've been given and that opportunity to use them to glorify God. And I think this does extend to anything that you do with other people.
Yeah, it's all about what's my attitude towards that? How do I treat other people? How do I treat what we're doing towards, I don't know, just being a good person, really, at the end of the day? And how am I letting those opportunities come to me, and whatever that community may be? It's exciting to share stuff like this, but I think there's a real opportunity when people come together. There's a real chance to be able to build each other up and not tear each other down, which sometimes it feels like is the way things are going. Okay, so enough of the lovey-dovey stuff, looking towards the better of the world.
Get all that out of the way.
Get all that out of the way. Let's put Joe back in the corner, in the spotlight, and we're back to our trivia, our Bible ballers, a little quiz with a difference. Remember how this works is that I give Joe a particularly tricky question, and the answer is a footballer who shares his first name with a book of the Bible. So, Joe, you've had a little bit of time now.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
I feel quite confident, actually, Joel.
Okay.
I won't lie to you. Can I hear the question one more time just to make sure I've got it right?
You absolutely can. So your question for today is this. Which Belgian fullback signed for Leicester in 2020, won the FA Cup with them in 2021, and then joined Fulham in 2023, where he plays to this day?
Well, I actually remember putting this guy in my fantasy league quite early on.
Oh, fantastic.
He was cheap. He was getting good assists, good points. It's Timothy Castagne.
Oh, well done. He's too good. He's too good. How much was he on FPL when you got your hands on him?
I reckon he was probably around 4.55 million.
I tell you what, it's more spending than some of them. But yes, no, Timothy, you're absolutely right, which, of course, is the book of Timothy. I had to make sure that I got that right.
Yeah, it's good to get that bit of it right. People have fallen short there before.
They have. No comment on that one. But no, well done, Joe. I don't know, does this count towards your tally? I think you've already got enough. Or maybe
of course it counts.
Okay, chuck it in there then.
Why wouldn't it count? Of course it counts. Well, thank you so much for listening to The Big Man Up Top. And Joel, thank you so much.
Joe, thank you for having me.
It's been so good to have you. And if you want to get in touch with the show, ping us an email to podcast@ucb.co.uk. Please follow, subscribe, and give us some good reviews on any of your podcast platforms. This will help us get the word out. And also, if you've enjoyed this, please tell your mates. A huge thank you to our producer Anthony Salamat-Webb for all his hard work behind the scenes. And there will be a new episode next Tuesday. Thanks, Joel.
No worries at all. I'll be looking forward to the podcast next week.
Thank you.